Hi everyone, I hope you're doing really well. I want to talk to you today about imagination. When I was a little girl, I had an excellent imagination. I dreamed that I was going to be an author of adventure books. And so I would spend many of my weekends practicing to be just that. I would sit there and I would write down adventures on a piece of paper, and then I would go outside into my front yard and my backyard and I would live these adventures. I would go around and I would fight imaginary foes. I would climb trees and imagine that I was a character in one of my books. I would take my spy camera and pretend that I was a spy. It was so much fun. I remember also when I was about 8 years old, my grandfather came back from an overseas trip to England and he brought with him a book of poems. These poems were all about the seaside. So about the beach, the ocean, ships and boats. It was a wonderful, wonderful book. There was a poem in there that even to this day still stays in my memory because it made my imagination go wild. The poem was called The Lobster. And as I read this poem as a little girl, there were so many things happening in it that I could imagine many different things for many hours. I want to share this poem with you today. And as I'm sharing this with you, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to try and imagine what is happening in this poem, just like I did when I was a little girl. I want you to think about things like, who are the characters? What do they look like? What is happening to the characters? Where is this happening? Can you imagine what the place looks like, what it smells like, what it sounds like, what it feels like? And if you were a character in this poem, what sort of thing would you be doing? All right, are you ready? "'Tis the voice of the lobster," I heard him declare. "You have baked me too brown, I must sugar my hair. As a duck with its eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons and turns out his toes. As I walked by his garden, I marked with one eye how the owl and the oyster were sharing a pie, while the duck and the dodo, the lizard and cat were swimming in milk around the brim of a hat." There are so many things happening in this poem. Let's use our imagination to discuss what's happening. First, we have so many characters. We have a lobster, an owl, an oyster, a duck, a dodo, a lizard, and a cat. I love that this poem has a dodo in it. Do you know what a dodo is? A dodo is an extinct bird. It kind of looks like this. I don't know, but I've been told. I don't know, but I've been told. Land of the world be mighty cold. What's happening in this poem? For me, I think the lobster sounds like he's giving a speech. I can imagine he has a big, booming voice and he's all puffed up and proud. What has happened to him? Well, he sounds like he has just been baked in an oven. My goodness. But wait, he's also talking about his hair. I imagine that he has got long, flowing, wavy brown hair. And then I imagine that the lobster is standing up and he's wearing a waistcoat with buttons and he looks a little bit like a gentleman. I can also imagine he's wearing a single eyeglass, just like this. But in the background behind the lobster, there are so many things happening. Behind him is a giant garden with beautiful flower beds and big, large, leafy trees. I imagine an owl and an oyster. I think they're sitting at a white, lacy looking metal table and they're sharing a pie and they're having deep discussion together. I think they're eating a delicious warm apple pie. And more, behind the owl and the oyster, I see a very large, like a top hat, and it's filled with milk. It kind of looks like a big swimming pool full of milk. And I hear laughing and I see playing and there's a duck, a dodo, a lizard and cat and they're having so much fun with each other. They're jumping around and splashing and making so much noise. I think it's a noisy place to be. It smells like spring flowers. And the lobster is trying very hard for people to hear him, but there is so much noise happening. And I can imagine that if I was there, I would be trying to listen to the lobster, but I think I would be very distracted by all the fun that's happening in that milk swimming pool. I wonder, what happened to your imagination when I read this poem out? Could you also imagine yourself in that situation? Could you imagine the things that I was describing? Or were there other things that was happening inside your mind as well? Now, imagination is a powerful thing. Let me tell you some fun facts about imagination. Imagination happens inside our clever minds, and we don't actually need to see or touch an object for us to be able to imagine it. So for example, if I was to describe to you a delicious warm chocolate pudding dripping with chocolate sauce and covered with delicious white vanilla ice cream, I bet that you can see that in your mind, and your belly might even be starting to get hungry because you want to eat it. Imagination also helps you learn because it's an important part of problem solving. For example, if you have a maths problem involving shapes, when you think about solving the problem, your mind will imagine the shape inside your head. If you're writing a creative story, you can see the characters in your mind. And when you see them, your clever brain starts to create adventures for these characters. Now, imagination also helps you to be kind to other people. This is because imagination helps you have empathy. Now, empathy is the ability to be able to step into somebody else's shoes and to feel what the other person might be feeling. Imagination also helps you feel happy. You use it all the time when you're playing fun games. You can become a superhero, a doctor, a pilot, an alien. You can become anything you want to be with your imagination. And you can find that a pot in your mum's drawer in the kitchen can become a helmet. You can find that the lounges in your lounge room, they can become tall towers. And maybe your pet dog, he might become your faithful horse as you're being a knight. Your imagination is so much fun. Now, imagination also makes you more creative, which means that you have more ideas, you have bigger ideas, and the more you use your imagination, you can actually take these big ideas and pull them into reality and make them real. Imagination helps keep your body healthy. When you're imagining, you're often running around, climbing, jumping, crawling. All of this is great for keeping your body healthy and balanced. Imagination also helps your friendships grow. When you join your imaginative ideas with your friends' imaginative ideas, you suddenly have double the amount of crazy, cool, imaginative ideas. When you join these ideas together, you learn more about your friend, and that helps you know them more and your friendship grows. Imagination also helps you feel happy, maybe when you're feeling not so happy, maybe when things are not going so right for you. We're going to watch a very short video now about a little girl who is actually in hospital and she's very sick and having lots of treatment. Every time she has treatment, she fires up her imagination, and that helps her go through this treatment. I wonder, as we watch this little video, can you use your imagination to see if maybe you can think about how this little girl might be feeling? Imagine maybe how you would feel in this situation. Let's watch it together now.
Sometimes I go to space. There's this giant spaceship. It's loud and scary, but I'm brave, so it's okay.
This is Mission Control. We're clear for launch. Over.
There's stars everywhere in space, and there's planets that have rings around them. I think it might be Jupiter.
Looking good, Talia.
There's some aliens that are my friends. They've got big eyes and long arms. And there's bad ones too that are scary aliens. They try and attack my friends.
We're picking up some activity on the radar. Engage lasers.
So I just shoot them down with my lasers. Pew, pew, pew. Sometimes I wish I didn't have to be at space, but my friends need me. So I guess space is okay.
Gonna get this helmet off.
Well done, astronaut. Welcome back.
Well, I have had lots of fun today using my imagination, and I hope you did too. As you go about your school day, I want you to practice using your imagination. Because the fun thing about imagination is that the more you use it, the more fun it can be. All right, I look forward to seeing you again on another Chaplain Check-In. Bye-bye.